Right, well we're fishing here today. It's late October, yet it's still 12-13 degrees and relatively pleasant. The hours of daylight are less, the water's getting clearer, the fish, although feeding, are getting less active, but there's still good fishing to be had. Probably the most important thing at this time of year is we need to fine down our gear from what we've been using in summer. So lighter main lines, lighter hook lengths, smaller lighter hooks, floats lighter, dotted down, obviously lighter elastics. Today I'm fishing for carp and odd silvers, but the carp are probably up to 6 or 7 pounds, but I'm fishing 0.12. If we were fishing heavier than that, then we'd struggle to get proper bites, purely due to the clarity of the water really. So first and foremost, if you're fishing at this time of the year, the first thing you've got to think about is fining your lines and your hooks and everything down, and hopefully you'll still get bites. Next thing to consider is baits. For this time of year, fish will still eat pellets. I think it's only really the coldest of cold weather in the middle of winter when any carp will turn its nose up as a pellet. In the summer, when we might be pinging 6 mils and 8 mils and fishing hard banded hook, pellet on the hook, that just needs to be refined for the colder, clearer water really. Feeding micros, just any 2 mil pellet, maybe an odd 4 mil as well, just to replicate what you're putting on the hook in amongst your feed. Expand the pellets for the hook. One thing I do like to do at this time of year, and many match anglers turn the nose up at using ready-made bait, but for me at this time of year, any of the ready-made hooker pellets are just that little bit firmer than expanders that you do at home. They're a little bit more rubbery, a little bit firmer texture, and whereas we're not fishing hard banded pellets on the hook, the fish are still active enough to give you liners and indications and trouble being off the bottom up in the water. Obviously, unless you're very gentle, an expander will come off the hook every time, especially if you're fishing long or fishing to islands. That can be a nuisance. Some of these ready-made hookers you can't replicate doing yourself. They're just that little bit firm enough that you can have a few gentle strikes and they'll stay on the hook. The other bait I would never ever be without this time of year is maggots. If you notice, I just caught one on maggots at 5 metres. Something will always happen this time of year if you throw maggots in short, be it a load of silverfish to top up at a time when you're not catching carp elsewhere, or sometimes like today, just by feeding maggot at 5 metres, the carp have turned up there and I'm catching them quicker there than anywhere else. The water's still got a tinge of colour. It's still not freezing cold, so we can be quite aggressive with them and feed them quite heavily. And like I say, something 9 times out of 10, something will happen on that maggot short line. So for this time of year, micros, 4 mils, expanders and maggots should be all you need. Margins this time of year are something still worth considering. Another couple of months, probably not going to catch there. Probably not going to be as many fish there as there was a couple of months ago in the height of summer. But there's still a tinge of colour. It's still mild enough that on the right day fish will come in the margins. Probably going to be at the end of the day as the light starts to go. You won't catch there all day this time of year on most venues. But it is still worth having to go there for a few better fish at the end of the day. Bait wise, I still like to fish what I was fishing in the summer, which is where I can get away with it, ground bait and dead maggot. In the summer we're piling in kilos of ground bait and a lot of maggot. We've obviously got to refine that. So basically all I'm looking to do this time of year, rather than cupping in loose ground bait like we do in the summer and getting a big spread and a lot of fish coming in, we're just feeding nuggets of harder ground bait with just a pinch of dead maggots, just ideally to get one fish to come in at a time, feed on that bait, and we can catch him. You're looking really this time of year for, I would say, a minimum of 2 foot of water. In the summer the fish will come into really shallow water. They're not going to do that now. Here today I've got 2.5 foot of water tight against the bank, so we can still fish really close in. Venues that are shallower, closer in, I would just set your float to 2.5 foot, plumb out till you find that depth and fish there, even if it isn't right in the edge. Realistically they're not going to come tight in shallower water. So all we're doing is just a nugget of ground bait, pinch of dead maggots, and then compared to the big bunches of maggots we're fishing in the summer, just maybe 3-4 dead maggots on the hook. Slightly heavier gear, 016, because if we're going to hook a big fish, this is where we'll hook him. Still nice and light elastic, so the fish aren't going to tear off this time of year. Just a nice, smooth, soft elastic. Anything we hook on 016 will land. And hopefully just with that small amount of bait there, if one comes in, we'll catch him. Rigs are worth considering this time of year, as in it's probably the most technical time of year for fishing. In the winter the fish will be nailed to the deck so we can get the bait down quickly, that's where you're going to catch them. In the summer they're going to be really shallow, you can fish really shallow and slap or pretty much do what you want. This time of year it's cold, but they're not going to be nailed to the deck like in the middle of winter. They're still going to on certain days be tempted to come up in the water a little bit. So although we need nice light delicate floats like the Series 1, you need to consider that the fish may come up, which is a bit more like summer. If they come right up in the water, which they still will this time of year, especially if we're loose feeding maggots or catapulting pellets and you want to fish shallow, you're not going to catch on the short lines of summer and slapping. What I prefer to do is have quite a long line between the float and the pole tip, like I said, with a nice light 0.2 of a gram float, and rather than slap I prefer to swing the pellet out into the feed and just keep the pole tip back a bit. They will still feed shallow, but not with a pole waving around over their heads. So if the fish are obviously shallow in your peg and you want to have a go for them, that longer line is quite important. Similarly, if we're fishing on the bottom properly, they're still liable to come up a little bit off the bottom. So what I like to do is have a fairly high bulk. You can see there the bulk shot's probably 18 inches from the hook with just a couple of number 10 droppers. So what I can do is just keep laying that rig in, the bulk will settle fairly quick and register the float, and then we're literally dropping our hook bait through the bottom 18 inches with the loose feed. And quite often at this time of the year, that's where you'll catch your fish, through that bottom 18 inches of water rather than nailed on the bottom. That's probably more important and more true on that maggot line where we'll feed it quite aggressively, and silverfish will be competing as well, and the fish will just come that little bit off the bottom. So again, although that's probably 6 foot deep there, I'm only fishing a 0.3 of a gram Series 7 float with a high bulk, so we're just dropping through that bottom 18 inches to 2 foot of water, where they'll probably be this time of year. Plumbing, something that's vitally important to fishing at any time of year. This time of year I would say even more so, especially as we progress through autumn and the fish start to shoal up even tighter as the water gets colder and clearer. What we're looking for really is some kind of feature. Ideally this time of year it would be a deeper hole. As the fish shoal up they'll just look for something different and sit in those places. Basically it's worth spending 10-15 minutes at the start of a match just plumbing round and getting the contours of your peg sorted out really. Somewhere like this today, I've not fished this lake or this peg before, so the first thing I've done is have a plumb around. I found out the deepest water is actually under my feet, so whereas I might have been tempted with the noise and the commotion to feed those maggots further out, because I know it's deeper, closer in, and that's likely where the fish are going to be, I've actually fed them shorter, and that's where I've caught. In the summer you can pretty much pick where you want to fish, and the fish are hungry, they'll come to you. This time of year you need to use a bit of common sense really and think about where they'll want to be, because they won't necessarily move. Sometimes it may suddenly, if the bottom's totally flat but there's a plateau, that might be worth feeding on there, although it goes against what I said that they're looking for deeper water. Something different may hold the fish. Cover, we've got lily pads at about 13.5 metres today. That's an obvious place to fish. Still I would plumb round those lilies because the depth's likely to vary different places around it, so if one area is particularly deeper, chances are that's where they'll be. A lot of pegs you'll find have a groove in front of you where everyone automatically fishes straight in front of them. The bottom's soft, the fish are always eating on those areas. That's obviously the most obvious place to fish, is where they're used to feeding. So a good heavy plummet, we've got a 20 gram plummet here, and just spend a bit of time feeling your way around the peg really.
If you want to watch more Matrix videos, click here. If you want to subscribe to the Matrix channel, click here.